cannot afford to be so politically correct anymore. Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
Please continue to hold for the next available representative.
Americanism, not globalism, will be our credo.
We appreciate you waiting and waiting. What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Disconnected.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back on a Sunday. Make sure you guys like the stream down below and subscribe to the channel if you're new. You guys know the drill. 100 likes, the face cam comes on. We're going to be talking about a decent amount tonight. We're going to be actually expanding a bit on what we were talking about on the last stream with the midterm, I guess you would say boycotters, if they're even a thing. Because you have this strange dynamic that is opening up on at least the online, right? Maybe not so much in the real world, but you have a lot of people that are trying to show the GOP something by disengaging from the political system. And I know we might have a few people in chat that shared this view. They're more than welcome to super chat their opinions, and we will, we can combat them as well. We can have a discussion. We're also going to be talking about the filibuster, because it is true that the Republican Party is flawed and it has gotten a lot better, but it is not perfect. And we're going to be talking about a way that it could actually be much better and more effective. We'll also be talking a bit about the SAVE Act as well, and will it be able to pass? What is going to happen there? And we also have a goal for the stream. 20 super chats, $5 and above. Can we hit our goal? Well, we already are one super chat out of 20 to our goal. So make sure to send in super chats. Keep the conversation going. We will get to them when the main segment is over, but we are 86% of the way to our like goal to turn the face cam on. So smash that like button. We've got all sorts of news. I mean, we covered some things on the channel we probably aren't going to get into in depth unless people super chat about it. But this past week, Arizona in the governor's race, it's very likely going to be Andy Biggs as the governor there. On top of it, California, you get a lot of people commenting on my video without watching it. Yes, they actually have a chance of electing a Republican governor because of the way their election system is set up. Could only take 35% of the vote to make it happen. Is it going to happen? I would probably wage against it, but it could. It's like the chances of it happening are probably like 30%, which is really saying something. Now, on the flip side, if they get in there, they're not going to have much power. They're probably going to be recalled. You're going to have a lunatic, but it could impact Gavin Newsom's 2028 bid even further, which he's slipping down. Kamala Harris is right there. She's right back in front. So make sure you guys like the stream, but we already hit our goal. So you guys know what that means. The face cam goes on. And we're going to be talking about the 2026 midterms, and we'll get into some of the replies to this tweet we have on the screen as well. But it's just ridiculous because you have people that think that, oh, I'm going to sit out the midterms, and then the Republicans are like going to like listen to me or something. And that's not how this works. That's never been how it worked. If you look at 2021, like the Georgia runoffs in January, a lot of people said, and there was a lot of anger at the time, and a lot of anger was justified, even though it seemed as if like David Perdue was one of the better senators you had, and he was willing to object to the results the way that a few other senators, it wouldn't have made a difference, by the way. But regardless, it's like you had people that sat out the runoffs because they're not sufficiently pro-Trump, even though Trump is like rallying with them multiple times. And I made a video about it at the time saying a boycott was a dumb idea, maybe in one of the races, but the Republicans need to have the Senate if you have a Biden presidency. And thankfully, because of people like Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema, the filibuster stayed. Now, those two are out of the Senate, and we're going to be talking about the filibuster later, so that kind of is going to be something that ties in, because I'm kind of going to make the argument here why we should get rid of the filibuster before the left does, because they will do it. You're naive if you think they won't. And because the Senate is just really bright in terms of the future prospects for the GOP. But regardless, people sat out the Georgia runoffs, and Georgia had two Democrat senators that are going to be a little bit tough to get rid of because of it. And Biden had a Democrat Senate. And even though it really didn't impact how much he was able to get done, and I understand Mitch McConnell, giving him the gavel, nobody's really necessarily all that enthused about. And I mean, John Thune is not a whole lot better, but he is marginally better than McConnell. Regardless, you're not teaching them a lesson. They're not going to listen to you because you sit out the midterms. This has never been the case in the history of the Republican Party, because these rhinos, they like losing. They will blame they'll blame Trump. They'll blame MAGA. They'll try to say Vance has to get out of the way. He can't run in 2028. Let's put up Brian Kemp or Nikki Haley or one of these people. That's how the consultant class operates. They're not listening to you. They don't care. They're happy you're staying home. You think you're changing their minds? You're an idiot. Like that's all. Like that's really all this is about. The people that say they're going to sit out the midterms, they're not changing anything. They're not doing anything. The GOP is not going to get rid of the filibuster because you sat home. They're just going to have a vote less, and they're going to cave more. The cavers are going to matter more because of that. And that's the problem, because this is what it's about. And we covered this on the last stream, and we're going to cover it a little bit more in depth now, because the midterms are this proxy war for the future of the GOP. If Donald Trump, you talk about his legacy, because you have a crowd that doesn't really like what Trump is doing. And they are just beyond deranged. They've eaten up the slop in various forms. And I'm sure we're going to get to some of that later. But you have people that are pro-Trump, but anti-GOP. I think that that's like, in the real world, maybe more of a segment to focus on. Because, and on top of it, I mean, you do have like a few of the Epstein people that they just don't get it. They want to sit there and virtue signal and just eat up the conspiracy slop. And that doesn't mean that there aren't actual conspiracy theories that are legitimate. But a lot of that was just gaslighting, hiding in plain sight. Like we know, and it's true, we know Epstein was running some sex trafficking ring. Was it blackmail for some like foreign power? The answer is likely it was not. And these people are just, despite zero evidence showing that, they will cling to that narrative and they'll say Trump's implicated, everybody's implicated, disaffect from politics. You're playing into the left's narrative. This is why the left embraces these schizoid theories. Maybe on the surface they don't delve into that stuff, but they're happy people are. You're taking the bait. People that say, actually, it's not left versus right, bro. It is left versus right. That is what it is at this point. Yeah, the Republican Party's not perfect. Yeah, 2016 was a little bit different. A lot of the Republicans that were in Congress then are either gone or they've assimilated. And maybe the Uniparty was a much bigger force then than it is right now. And maybe you could say, well, if a Democrat gets in there, they'll go back to how the Republican Party was in the first stages of Biden's presidency. Maybe you're right to an extent, but the problem with that is the fact that we shouldn't be giving power to the left in the first place. So it doesn't matter. That's the bottom line. They want it back so badly because they've lost so badly. They've lost the culture. They've lost generations of voters. So they're trying to push them over their skis. They're trying to disaffect these voters so they don't show up for Republicans or anybody. It has nothing to do with them supporting Democrats. Democrats know they're not going to get the vote of a lot of people, a lot of young men. They're not voting Democrat. There's no way. But they realize, we could like push them over their skis. We could send them into the lands of schizophrenia and like Israel obsession or whatever. Send them there so they're not a threat. And that's why things that were censored, if you would even mention vaguely 5 years ago, are out in the open because the left realizes, okay, maybe censorship was not helping us. Maybe it was making the right a little bit more competent. And obviously I oppose censorship. I was a victim several times, but that doesn't change the reality that the left is thriving by disaffecting people. So while you have this marketplace of ideas, and it is a beautiful thing that there's no censorship and the Overton window is shifting on various fronts, at the same time, we can't become retarded people. We can't be mentally retarded because that's what so many people are becoming. Mentally slow, if you will, if you're one of those soft people in the audience. But regardless, we have to be intelligent. We have to be smart. People can't sit out the midterms. There are local things that affect people's lives. You're just saying, oh, no, I'm not going to vote because you're a loser, because you're a beta, because you have low T, because all of those things are true. For people that are going to sit this out, there's no excuse. There is no excuse for just taking the L, taking the back seat. Like, it's just not the answer. You want change? Maybe show them what they're doing is good, because the Republicans, a lot of these like weak consultant people that are holding the GOP back, they look at Trump even. And they may not say it to his face, but they say, the protectionism is hurting, even though the inflation is low. They say the immigration raids are hurting. They want less deportations. You want more deportations? Maybe reward this administration and reward the Congress that actually did something and raise the budget of ICE to a rate that most countries' militaries are not funded to that specific rate. So again, you look what's going on here. You think deportations aren't enough. Okay, fair. But if the GOP is losing the House, and then they'll, these people, which they probably do, for the record, they probably do. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, but the party out of power always gains, and you don't have to overcomplicate things. The economic situation might be improving, but it's not improving fast enough, and that does, boil down, trickle down, whatever you want to call it, into electoral politics as a whole. But you will still have these morons that look at like the Hispanic trends and then misinterpret them and then blame them on ICE raids. And then the new Congress will bipartisanly defund ICE. Like, this is what people are playing with. They want to lose. You want a virtue signal. You don't want to win. You want to lose. If you want to sit these things out, you're a loser. You should have zero place in this party, zero place in this movement. Nobody should be listening to you. And they're not going to, and maybe for the wrong reasons, but they're not going to. And that's just the waste of time that these people are engaging in. They're wasting their time. You're not going to effectively get anything positive going on by taking the back seat and sitting out a midterm. And I see this from the polling crowd as well. The polling crowd, which turned on a dime against Trump after, I guess, Iran, which did not lead to anything bad. In fact, you took out their nuclear facilities, you dodged war, but you still have a lot of people that saw that as an opportunity. I don't know if they see it as an opportunity to grift or if they're seeing it as an opportunity. I don't know. I know some of these people and I like some of these people, but it is a bit disheartening to see everybody just lose their minds and start contradicting themselves from 2 months ago, because that's the real trick. That's the real trigger, I guess you would say. If you look at that and you see the fact that people are just blatantly contradicting things about special elections they were saying a couple of months prior, then it begs the question, are you paid? I'm not saying you are paid off, but your brain is broken at a very minimum because you're trying to prove a point and it's not getting you anywhere. And I try to be on the positive side of things. At the same time, I'm not delusional. I will have people that are mad at me if I have a certain take or whatever. But I try to keep it as real as I possibly can while still promoting a positive narrative. That's what I do. And actually, we've underestimated the right in 2024 in the elections. We got one state wrong, but it was because we didn't think Trump would pull it off. We got the House and Senate down pretty much accurately, even though the seats were a little bit off in that department. But regardless, that's not really the point. The main point here is that 2026, you have this midterm election cycle that's happening. We're already underway. Texas has its first primary, and a few other states have their primaries in a few weeks from Tuesday. This is not a drill. Get out and vote. And it's the people that complain about the GOP will never vote in a primary. They will never vote. You reserve the right to talk shit about the state of the party if you're not able to partake in the primary electorate system in your designation. You don't get to complain in Texas about John Cornyn if you don't vote against John Cornyn, right? Think about it. Think about it. It's not entirely something that is worth losing your minds over if you can't think properly about how to go about these sort of things. But so many people just can't reason for one reason or another. And it's true. And I think that regardless, you're going to still see a lot of people turn out. I said this, highly anticipating that despite a lot of loud imbeciles calling for an election boycott, the GOP will end up with a few million more raw votes nationally than they got in 2022. And the caveat here, though, because you look at 2025 versus 2021, Jack Ciattarelli in New Jersey got more raw votes significantly than Phil Murphy, who won the election in 2021, got. But the problem about that was that the turnout on the Democrat side was much higher. So turnout matters. You need every vote you can get, and we have to work hard. It starts now. It starts by making sure people vote in the primaries for the correct people. The correct people. And we need to make sure that we win. We need to make sure that we can extend the trifecta and at least win as many House seats as possible, because this is where the battleground for power truly is. The GOP is not perfect, but they are the best you got. They're the only vehicle that can win. We're making progress. We're moving that ball down the field. And if you're on the 5-yard line and you're just purposely just throwing the ball to the other team, then that's just abysmal. There's no other, I don't even have words for how moronic doing something like that would be. But you have these people that want to lose. They essentially are on the left. We've seen what the left has done over the past year. They've lied, which is expected. That part is not even the worst part about it. But then we've actually seen terrorist attacks on people. Charlie Kirk is no longer with us because of them. They mocked him in his death. They did everything that they possibly could do to run his name and his widow's name through the mud after his death. And people just want to sit down. And of course, the left loves it when you blame some little pet schizoid theory. The left is loving it because it absolves them. Like Candace Owens and all her lunacy, she's absolving the left. That is what this is about. They are shooting at us. Everybody has a target on their back if they're speaking out. And then people seriously want to go out there and just try to act like in the aftermath they decided to squander any energy by, I don't know, just doing something extraordinarily stupid and mid-witted and moronic, really. And that's the main issue that I have with these people that don't want to win. They want to complain. They should not, these people in a perfect world, I would censor them because they shouldn't have, they're too dumb to have a voice. Realistically, just speaking, off the cuff, I don't think people should be listening to any of these clowns for anything. They don't provide anything of value. That being said, we have to somehow deal with them because they are able to run their mouths. And, you win some, you lose some. But regardless, we have to keep fighting. We have to win. There's no other option here. We don't have an option. So anyways, we're going to be pivoting a bit, talking about the filibuster and the SAVE Act as well, because the SAVE Act has support to pass. Trump supports it, Vance supports it, which is crucial for the Senate because you need 50 plus 1. And you have support for this bill from a little bit of an unlikely source. If you talk about the 50th vote, it wouldn't be who I would have anticipated it would be, but it's Susan Collins. So for all the people out there, and by the way, Susan Collins is a rhino, but she's our rhino, okay? Like, people need to understand this. She's in Maine. She's not in Kentucky. Mitch McConnell's not signing on to this. He's in Kentucky. Mitch McConnell doesn't want anything to do with this, but Susan Collins does. Therefore, Susan Collins in a D+7 state like Maine is a better senator than somebody in an R+30 state. But again, you hear people saying primary Susan Collins. No, you're wasting your time. You're helping Democrats if you do that. She is better than a Democrat because not a single Democrat would do something like this. And whether they should or they shouldn't, or whether it's an 80-20 issue or not, it doesn't matter. That's not really to say that I like Susan Collins a lot. Susan Collins is a necessary evil. I think we can understand that. But there is a key word there, necessary, in front of evil, that shows that she has to win. And people need to understand that. You don't get a Democrat voting for this bill. You don't even get John Fetterman voting for this bill. Not a single Democrat is voting for this bill. But Susan Collins is signing on to this bill. And it also shows that we need to get rid of this filibuster. And by the way, Susan Collins might even be doing this at her own detriment, to her own reelection. She is sacrificing political capital in an election year. Nobody asked her to do this. I don't even know if I'd tell her to do this. I'd rather get somebody else to be the 50th. But the problem is you need 60 in the Senate, and that has to change. Maybe it doesn't have to be 50 plus 1, but the filibuster is antiquated. Polarization is too much right now, and the Senate is going to get rid of the filibuster the second a Democrat takes office. The Republicans need to take the lead and in the turn of events, prevent the Democrats from ever taking office. They may not have a path in the Senate until the 2040s. Now is the time. Now is the time to get rid of the filibuster. You can whine and say they're going to use it against you. Guess what, jackass? That's already happening. They're going to do that. You're not going to have Kirsten Sinema to save your ass. You're not going to have Joe Manchin to save your ass. You're going to have lunatics. The most moderate Democrats are going to be people like, I don't know, John Ossoff, the crazy guy from Georgia. He's not going to save you. None of these people are going to save you. Fetterman won't even be there in 2029. If he's there, he's probably a Republican. He switches parties. You're not going to have any moderate Democrat senator come 2029. Your most moderate senator is going to be somebody like Ruben Gallego, who is a far left lunatic. These are your people that are the so-called moderates. There's no moderate left. Susan Collins might be one of the only moderates left in the Senate, to be fair. And at times that can hurt us. But in a time like this, it could help us. But the filibuster needs to go. And this is a problem, and people need to call their senators, call up John Thune, people want to complain on X, call the senators, do what you got to do, because whatever's happening right now with this filibuster thing, government's being shut down left and right. Of course, Schumer's not going to try to hand Trump an open government if he doesn't have to. And of course, he matters here. His vote matters because you need 60 senators to get it done. And you should only need 50. Maybe you want to say lower it to 55, lower it to 54. Okay, fine. The Democrats are still going to get rid of it entirely. So we have a decision to make here. Yeah, you could say, well, the Democrats are going to do X, Y, and Z. Yeah, well, the end of the day, it does seem as if Republicans are going to be in the driver's seat to control the Senate for like decades if they do their job. And honestly, for all the boycotting stuff, as much as I oppose it, you don't want to give people a reason to boycott the midterms. So maybe get things done so people will reward you. That's what I say. And it goes for both arguments, both sides of it. I think that the Republicans just need to get rid of it now. There's no time to waste. You don't have any time to waste here. You're wasting your time. Every second that antiquated piece of whatever you want to call it is in place, you're losing. Get rid of it. Get things done. Win. Maybe you want to wait until after the midterms. Fine. Okay. But I don't know if there's any sign that Thune is willing to wait until after. Trump has talked about this. Trump supports getting rid of it now. So there's no excuse. They need to move quickly. I would rather have it be done before the midterms. If not, you could lose a seat, maybe lose 2. Collins goes down. If she goes down, you're probably going to be at 51. And Murkowski's going to be there. So that's going to be a little bit tougher. And I wouldn't expect Collins or Murkowski to support getting rid of the filibuster, but they don't have to. Because you have, all it takes is 50, but you don't want to risk it. You really don't. The filibuster needs to go. If Thune gets on board, it's going to take a few actors. You might have like a John Curtis, somebody like that. Doing it now would make more sense, for the record, because now you have a little bit more of a cushion. You might not have it, but again, too many rhinos, maybe, but it's a tough situation you're in. But the filibuster needs to go. It needs to be ended, because otherwise you're not getting anything done. The people that say, well, the Democrats are going to take over and do X, Y, and Z, they're going to do that. They are literally going to do that anyways if they win. So you might as well get it done now. You have nothing to lose. Don't be a coward. Don't be a loser. Don't be a rhino. Just get it done. As for the SAVE Act, voter ID, it's common sense. The left's lost the argument so much in terms of race with voter ID. They're now talking about married women not having voter ID, as if name changes wouldn't be documented, which they have. And most people need a real ID anyways to fly a plane. So if they're flying on a plane, then what difference does it make? Because a real ID would be sufficient. And on top of it, it's ironic because married women vote Republican. So if anything, it would be supposedly disenfranchising a Republican voting bloc that they're pretending to care about, because they have no argument against it. They're just losers. They misinterpret the rules and the statutes within the bill. And what are you going to do about that? So regardless, we are at the 30-minute mark. We're going to be getting into the super chats here. And if we hit our goal, we'll be getting to the Grind My Gears segment, which we are 17 out of 20. We're doing a great job, guys, on super chats. We actually have 2 Grind My Gears segments to talk about as well. So when the super chats load, we'll actually get into the super chats as soon as we possibly can, but we will have to have a quick water break first. Okay. Here we go. We have Ravino6128 saying we should be backing Israel because they're on the foot against radical Islamic terrorism. Look at London, Paris. Radical Islam has destroyed those cities. Well, I think you're preaching to the choir a bit there. Because, regardless of whatever you think of foreign aid or things like that, which now Israel actually wants to get off of foreign aid, Trump is saying no, because I think Trump views it as a way to actually control their foreign policy because, again, you have a lot of people that say they control Trump. In reality, they don't. In fact, Trump has more pull over them than they do over him. It's not even close. But this is why, like, the far-right parties or the so-called far-right parties in Europe, they actually are the most Zionistic parties compared to the more like, establishment parties that are like, oh, we like the two-state solution sort of thing. And it's because they understand the threat of the people and the nations surrounding Israel have brought to the West. Now, in the United States, it's not as prevalent that you have like a lot of these people. Obviously, New York City, it's getting bad. Certain places in the country it has. But as a whole, it's a little bit deeper than that. The immigration problem in the West is multifaceted. But that is part of it for sure. Wild and Crazy Bear for two says Trump needs to go after Thune more. He needs to apply pressure with the filibuster. American Nerd 76 says, glad Andy Biggs has an easier primary now. That's true. Also, the Save America Act must be passed. Agreed. Peter Misseri for 5 says, do you think Florida will ever vote blue again for president? And do you agree that Texas has been giving Dems false hope, just like New Jersey has been giving the GOP false hope? Well, they're not going to win Texas in the short term, or probably not in the long term. So I'm not particularly worried about Texas. American Nerd 76 says, I'm not entirely sure if California will advance 2 Republicans to the general, but it would be the funniest thing to happen this year. Well, we'll be watching it and breaking down the results in June when that does take place. Thornton Maloney for 5 says, Rich Barris's polling shows how the people are disengaging are 100% real. He also says the Senate can well, you know what? I'm not going to take his polling as gospel. I've seen what the guy's been saying on social media, and it seems like the polling is just fitting his narrative. Now, will that be 100% true? Am I saying his polls are fake? Maybe not. But at the end of the day, it is strange how you have people that had a drastic switch in polling the second they changed their views, the second they changed their beliefs. We hit our goal, by the way. Thank you. But other polls, even though Trump's approval might have fallen, it didn't fall in the same trajectory. It's not showing the same thing. So he's wrong about the Senate, by the way. He thinks Lindsey Graham could lose. I don't know what's going on with him. But, I understand. He's been very accurate in the past. And if Lindsey Graham loses or it's a close race, we can eat our words, won't we? We'll eat our words and just trust Barris for forever. But until that day comes, we're not seeing it on the ground. I don't know what's going on with the guy. I'm not going to take his word as gospel. But Mitchell Ryan for 5 says, any update on Florida redistricting? I have a feeling we're going to need it probably this spring. If I had to guess, I don't think there's an update at the moment. Art O'Connell for 10 says, thank you. Thank you for the 10. TM Sav 123 says, how can Trump save the House? Well, I don't think it's really on just Trump. I think that the House with the big, beautiful bill, you'll see more positive returns come tax season, which we're already kind of in, but not a lot of people have done their taxes yet. But there's been a lot of deductions, mainly ones that have helped the working class Americans, contrary to the left's narrative. So we'll see what happens as we get closer to April, but I think you're going to have a lot of happy people with their returns. Red Whale says, I'm glad Utah Republicans are finally getting their act together. Seems like they're going to redistrict the map back to a beautiful 4-0. Well, it's on the ballot, it seems. And that's another thing. We might be talking about that this week if there's more news on that. Tucson Paleocon for 10 says, W. Karen Taylor Robeson for putting Arizona first over her personal ambitions. It's unfortunate David Schweikert still refuses to draw. He's going to lose anyways. He should run for his re-election bid, but he doesn't want to do it. I don't know. American Nerd 76 his thoughts on Virginia Supreme Court decision on their 2026 map. I believe that they're going to be able to push it through. I didn't see anything about that. Mr. Jimmy for 10 says, have you seen the Danny Spud video where a high schooler is counter-posting anti-ICE protests and got punched by a fat leftist? I saw that. It's disturbing how many leftists online celebrate this. Well, they're miserable, violent people. This is their religion to them. They have to destroy the right because they resent people. They resent like normalcy. And this is how they decide to go about taking it out on people. They attack them in some cases more violently than other cases, but this was just one of those things. They believe that ICE is out there indiscriminately just like shooting at random like white leftists, which is ridiculous. And it's like every one of those cases, whether it's Renee Good or Alex Peretti or one of these cases, whether you want to call it a tragedy or not, these have all been provoked by the leftist lunatics that ended up losing their lives, usually to defend like ICE arresting like actual like pedophiles or something like that. It's abysmal, but this is the world we're living in. So people need to remember that we are up against an enemy, and there's no need to sugarcoat it. There's no need to act all cute and say, oh no, the parties are the same. Nope. The left is a unique form of evil. Giblet says, don't give the GOP your money, though. If you want to send them a message, but not voting is detrimental, get them in the wallet. I mean, I guess it's a better solution than not voting, but, I would say donate to the candidates directly that you support the most. I'll leave it at that. American Nerd 76 has heard Susan Collins is a yes vote for the SAVE Act. We covered that. Roku Fan 1835 says Casey Putsch is crashing out hard on Twitter. The guy's a schizoid. And it's like Vivek Ramaswamy, he's got issues. I'm not the biggest fan of him. I don't think he's the strongest candidate, but it's either him, Amy Acton, or this schizoid lunatic. And he hates the Casey Putsch. He hates Trump. He thinks like he's calling Trump a pedophile. He's doing the leftist thing and all this stuff. It has to, like, honestly, if Vivek was to lose a primary to him, that'd be a big blow to Trump, and people would be talking about his standing. But even if Vivek lost to general, which he's not going to lose the primary, he'll go to the general, that would still be a brutal blow to Trump. I don't like everything Vivek has ever said, although it's funny because his primary opponent is having a bigger crash out than Vivek had a few years ago. But it has to be Vivek in the general over the Democrat, whether you like him or not, because it's a proxy war. It's not about that. Oh, Trump's pick lost Ohio. I could hear him say it now. And it won't be for the reasons they say it, but that's the narrative that gets set. So be careful. Think before you do certain things. That's what I tell people. Mr. Jimmy says also they went as far to send death threats to the pro-ICE kid saying he should die to a high school. These people vote and coexist in our society. Yeah, and that's a problem. Because back in the day, a lot of them would be in the mental asylum, and now they're allowed to roam free. And this is what happens when you placate the crazy people in society. For time and time again, why did cancel culture become a thing? Because all these corporations would just placate the crazy leftists for what? For what? It's destructive behavior. It needs to stop. J.R. Williams for 2 says, no matter who we vote for, you always get... That's not true. You don't always get John McCain. Did John McCain get you negative net migration? No. Okay, so that's just not true. Kaiser Conquer for 2 says vote Beau French for Texas Railroad Commission. Agreed. The journalists are out there trying to get him. We gotta back them up. They don't have any pull. We're gonna show them that. American Nerd 76 for 10 says a friend of mine told me Trump is the modern Ulysses S. Grant, intensely loyal to his buddies. They could do no wrong even if they're stupid. Agree or disagree? I disagree. I mean, you had plenty of people that were supposedly loyal to Trump or acted loyal to Trump that Trump was able to change his mind about. I guess people like MTG, even though she kind of was undercutting him in a certain way. But no, you have you have plenty of examples of the president, shaking up his cabinet or whatever, and he's got different advisors around him with different views at a point where at times it's even been detrimental. Red Whale 18 said, did you see the leaked ICE memo? I did not. It looked really good for deportations. Late 2026 onward looks very true for mass. Well, the reason behind that is pretty simple, and it is because 2026 onwards, you actually have the big, beautiful bill coming into fruition. That's why ICE is ramping up. They say Trump is backing off of Minneapolis. because ICE is like going a little bit quietly, and they're actually getting the statewide law enforcement to assist a bit more. So then they run with this narrative that Trump is backing down in Minneapolis. The whole thing's a mess. Dino Diva 6169 for 5 says Nate Morris is running for Mitch's Senate seat, campaigning as MAGA, and has financial support for Elon Musk. Good candidate. Yeah, he's the best of the bunch for sure. Let's see. American Nerd 76 has heard Fetterman might vote yes on the SAVE Act. Well, it wouldn't be enough if he did unless the filibuster's gone. So that could just be political posturing on his part. Christopher Laurie for 10 says, I'm thinking about this. We always hear the Dems will end the filibuster, pack the court. We need to do those things before the Dems do. Well, we already kind of have the court packed. But as for the filibuster, yeah, filibuster probably should go sooner than later. Red Whale 18 says, hopefully you can get rid of that awful rhino senator in the primary that Ben Shapiro shills for some reason. I didn't even see Ben Shapiro say anything about Cornyn. But also, hopefully, Brandon Herrera wins. Agree with that. American Nerd 76 says, I agree getting rid of the filibuster should happen, but it's not realistic right now. Heard they might be willing to get rid of the zombie filibuster where they can filibuster without talking. Red Whale 18 says, John Cornyn and Bill Cassidy are going down. I agree. And you get 2 rhino senators in one cycle in red states and people want to complain. That's a big victory. And it sends a warning shot to people that are on the fence as well. The rhino lights in the Senate, they got a big target on their back then, so they got to shape up or they're going to be poached by the primary electorate in whatever election year they'll be in. And there's other ones that could be worth voting against, like Moore Capito and Rounds and even Lindsey Graham. John Waffle H2P for 20 says, I'm tired of seeing these weak-minded Virginia Republicans on X crying. None of these people cared about the election a year ago, but now when Dems take over, they cry like they weren't expecting Dems to redistrict it. Yeah, well, the same thing, like, oh, they don't want to vote for Winsome Sears or whatever because she's kind of weak, which she is. But if you don't vote, this is what happens. This is what happens when you boycott. You know, it's a loser mentality. You don't get anywhere. You just take the L's. Dilly Bod for 10 says the Black Pillars are working overtime. Well, maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a good sign because when they're working overtime at the same time, maybe it means that they have to be. They're not taking it for granted that people are just going to opt out. So Jack Langley says total L tweet against James Fishback. You're a genocide denier. Well, that's not true. Again, this is what's going on in the Middle East. You have, according to Hamas's own data, less than 10,000 civilians, when you square all the data, have been killed. Okay, and by the way, it's very insulting to people that are actual descendants of actual genocide survivors like me, who had probably, if you look at the towns that my family came over from in certain parts of eastern Turkey, probably a 1 in 100 chance of survival, and they survived. And you're going to tell me that a bunch of radical Islamic terrorists, these lunatics in Gaza that decide to attack and kill thousands of Israelis and then FAFO'd and then use people as human shields, and then not even 10,000 civilians that they used as human shields die, and the population of Palestine goes up. And you're going to sit here and call me that's a genocide? That's insulting to me as an actual survivor. My great-grandfather or my great-grandmother survived the Armenian genocide. And you're going to sit here and tell me that I'm a genocide denier because I actually fucking know what a genocide is. Seriously? Come on, man. Baywatcher for 2 says Jack Langley is a woke lefty. There's no genocide. You don't even have to support Israel. You can say we shouldn't send foreign aid to Israel. You can say certain things about Israel. I might even disagree with some. I might agree with some. The bottom line is it's not a genocide. It's just this moral effing nonsense that we see from these people. It's leftism. That's what it is. You're buying into the narrative. It's the same thing. The anti-Israel stuff is inherently at its core anti-white. It's anti-colonialism. They say, oh, these people came from Europe and they colonized, and they're the reason why Gaza is such a shithole. It's all them. It's the same narrative they use against heritage Americans, white Americans, whatever you want to call them. It's the same exact narrative that they use. That's my issue with it. And it consumes people's brains. It rots away their brains. They become incompetent. They start handing the keys over to the enemy. And that can't happen because we all lose. All of us should be in this together. But then you get people practicing this bizarre form of it's like witchcraft, this anti-Israel nonsense. And then they go down these rabbit holes where they're parroting leftist talking points or whatever. And that's not going to get us anywhere. It's not. That base cat with the member chats is Tucker Carlson, is for some reason buddying with Cenk. MTG did the same thing before, downward spiral. Well, Tucker's been doing the third worldist stuff for a while now. I mean, we've called this out long before it was even really all that popular. And it's sad to see, but Red Whale 18 for 5 says, I can't wait to see the 2028 contrast. JD and Rubio professional, likable versus insufferable clowns like AOC or even Kamala Harris. That would be funny. AOC and Harris. Could you imagine if they put those two together on the same ticket? Their collective IQ might be lower than JD's. And by the way, that was a beautiful speech from Marco Rubio. That was incredible what he did at the, not the UN, but some European conference. It was wonderful, but that was a great speech. So, all right, we're going to go to the Grind My Gears segment. We already kind of covered one of them, which was the fishback tweet we're going to look at, because it's like this guy's basically like talking about basically inserting left-wing indoctrination into schools, which is one thing. Like, it's one thing to say we should teach more about the communist genocides like the Holodomor or Pol Pot or anything like that. That's true, but like he's inserting this thing that's not even, like, you're talking about less than 10,000 civilians, the population's going up in Palestine. It's just like, this is left-wing slop. That's the main concern. It's not about being pro-Israel, more so that it is recognizing that a good chunk of the anti-Israel stuff is left-wing slop. So it's not about being pro-Israel more than it is about being anti-Israel, because that's what we see. But that's not the full part of the segment. I wanted to actually critique the administration for a second, which is kind of something that might surprise some people. And it's not in a bad way or a bad faith way, but because we're posting so many wins. Violent crime is down. This is working. The militarization of places like Memphis and Florida and all these places with the National Guard, they're dropping the murder rate relentlessly. And the messaging is not quite there in certain ways because so many people haven't heard about them. Fentanyl deaths have dropped significantly. And maybe this is because Trump isn't hitting the campaign trail enough yet, which he plans on doing. Maybe it's because they're not getting out the information enough, but the word needs to get out. And it's kind of crazy how you have this ecosystem where the alt media, I'm not talking about me, I'm not talking about a few other people, but the alt media sphere just riddles people's brains with nonsense about what's actually going on, and it distracts them from the victories. You know, they were promoting Trump and platforming Trump during the election cycle, and it was a good thing then. But like the podcast bro industrialized media complex, these people are not helping the situation either. That's a part of it. But the administration, they got to find a way to get the word out, get the message out, because you have a lot of wins. And I'm not just talking about the economic stuff, but the social stuff. Like, you're talking about the murder rate, crime going down, lowest or the highest or the lowest drop of, or the highest, no, okay, this is tough. The sharpest, I think, is what we're looking for. Drop in crime since like 1900 in the murder rate. Things of that nature. It's a lot to see. A lot of what Trump has said has been vindicated. and you're looking at it. So I have to tell people, it grinds my gears that it's not getting out there enough. Maybe I should do more content about it. I guess I could do more to help, but you'd think the admin would be doing a bit more with this stuff. I don't know what their strategy is, but that's something to think about. Let's see. Giblet says, why do some people care about so-called genocide in Palestine while denying the Holocaust? Because they're crazy people that embrace schizoid theories. That's what they do. It all boils down to Jew this, Jew that. It's cliche. It's a lazy explanation for things that it's not even an accurate explanation. They're just looking for reasons to lose in one way or another, whether they realize it or not. And they're incapable of grasping something called nuance. That gets lost on them pretty quickly. Matt Fortu says, why are you pro-Israel or AIPAC? Okay, he's basically wondering if I'm not. First of all, I'm not even pro-AIPAC. Like, the people that say AIPAC is like the reason for everything in politics, those people are dumb. I don't even like the fact AIPAC donates like more money to Democrats than it does to Republicans. I'm not pro-AIPAC in the slightest. As for pro-Israel, like I said, more anti-Israel. I'm not Jewish, but I recognize the fact that you look at what the left is, how the left views Israel, and it's the same way they view the United States. It's the same way they view countries in Europe that have not fallen to mass migration. And I think the pro-Israel side has dropped the ball fundamentally on this by not making that the core thesis of the messaging. And I think that more people are starting to wake up to this, which is good, for sure. But it's not a matter of being pro-Israel. It's more just recognizing that the anti-Israel stuff is a lot of just slop, and it's counterproductive. And it's out of step with the Republican electorate in full. Like, it is true, a lot of younger people are more disaffected on the issue of Israel. I understand why. Usually it's in good faith reasons, but you have some people that have it in bad faith reasons, that they're dominating the discussion because it's promoted for some reason. Maybe it's promoted to demoralize the right, to turn people against President Trump, as it's been done. And that's where the problem is. So American Nerd 76's thoughts on Cuba possibly collapsing. I don't know. We'll see. BBJG2KN for 5 says Barnes and Barris lost their mind. People need to touch grass. Candace Owens is grifter and evil. My criticism of Trump is the Epstein files messaging. Well, that's the criticism that's valid for the Epstein files. It's the messaging. The Bondi rollout was not good. They're released for the most part. I mean, there's more to be released, but it will never be enough for these people because they'll run with this narrative. You know, people like Thomas Massey, because they have to grift, they have to do their thing. And it's just like what are they really just trying to do here? Like, you have to think about it, because all it is meant to do is demoralize people, to muddle the discourse with, oh, Trump is like, you know, have so many people on the left, they'll screen grab parts of it that'll be like, somebody called a tip-in, they said Trump raped this girl and they were deemed not credible, but they'll leave the last part out and they'll say, this is proof Trump is a rapist or whatever. They're not people that are acting in good faith. These are people that need to be paid no attention to and crushed. Yes, Epstein was somebody who trafficked women, underage women in many cases. That being said, this notion that there was like a list of celebrities and everything they ever did on the island. No, that's not been the case. And if it ever was the case, it would have been disposed of in the Biden administration, or possibly under Bill Barr in the first Trump admin. Not necessarily blaming Trump for that, but there's questionable ties between people like Bill Barr and his circle and Epstein too. So Baywatcher says the anti-Israel crap's all online. My area is right-wing. Everyone you talk to is pro-Israel except a few of the younger woke women. Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. I personally, it's not my top issue. The reason why we talk about Israel a lot is because you have a lot of people that come in here and act like that's like the only thing that matters, and it's not true. Like, they'll exaggerate things. They'll excuse radical Islam and third worldism because they want to own Israel and own da Jews or whatever. And it's just low IQ behavior. It's low IQ slop. And they don't grasp nuance. It's not even like they're giving a reasoned critique of anything. They're just unhinged lunatics. And in most cases, American Nerd 76's Epstein crap is the new Russiagate. Well, it's true. And at first, when Trump said that, I think a lot of people thought, yeah, that's probably not the best messaging, but he was right. So credit where due. It's been used as that. The left has adopted it. It's all over late night television. It's conspiracy slop for the left, the Epstein stuff. And for right-wingers to just buy into it at the level that they have, I don't think they understand what time it is or what we're really up against. I think they just like being edgy and doing, I don't even know what. But Red Whale 18 for 5 says, I'll try my best to get people that would vote red engaged here in Michigan and make them vote. If we lose, I'd rather go down trying than not trying. See, that's the spirit. That's the attitude we want. So many people don't have that, and I think that that's the problem. So kudos to you. Anyways, we can look in the live chat, but we'll be not this Tuesday, but a few Tuesdays from now, we'll be going live. We're going to be doing about 5 more minutes tonight, but we will be going live for the primaries that will be happening shortly. So that's exciting. Finally, we've reached election season once again. The off season is coming to a close. The channel's picking up. Things are going well. Thoughts on the whole thing going on in Iran with all the protests still ongoing? Well, there was a big protest in the streets of Dallas yesterday that was pro the Iran protesters. I don't know what's going on. Look, I don't want to have a war over there. I don't mind Trump striking certain things. I don't mind us taking the oil. That was always the problem. If you go back and listen to Trump and his critiques of like Jeb Bush and George Bush and all that stuff back in 2016, a big part of it wasn't anti-war. It was, we didn't take the oil. We're being stupid. We're incompetent. And that's the thing. So I don't want to go to war in the Middle East. I don't think it benefits the United States. We don't want these endless wars. If you could strike a dictator, take him out, or do what you did to Maduro, essentially, and do it swiftly and take the oil and keep the oil, then that's a win. So again, I think you could support the protesters without going to war. I think you can, morally support them. I think the people of Iran would be best served taking their country back. They're a great people. The Ayatollah probably is going to fall anyways. He's older than Biden. He's not going to be around for much longer. So who even knows? Red Whale 18 for 5 says, it's crazy to think that if the online right was mostly united and we were highly engaged, I generally believe we'd be unstoppable even in off years. I agree. But the online right likes to be fractured. They like to be stupid. They don't want to win. They don't focus on the things that matters the way the left does for them, at least. And that's the problem. It's a big problem. So it's true. But I do think that we have a bright future so long as we get our ducks in a row, and it's about people that can make solid content and positive content and put those voices out there and do that sort of thing and read the room that they need to read to get the job done. I mean, Charlie Kirk was somebody who did it well. And we had, I said then and there when that whole tragedy happened with the assassination that we all have, we all have to fill the shoes. They're big shoes to fill. Everybody's got to chip in. It's not just one person, or it's everybody. So it's just the whole thing. But we could save this country. I think the midterms are going to be better than people think. And will Republicans maintain the House? Maybe not. But are they going to get destroyed? Are they going to lose 41 seats again? I highly doubt it. But we do need all hands on deck. We do need to make sure we can gain as many victories as possible, because all politics in the United States are electoral politics. American Nerd 76, this might be the last super chat of the night, but he says, when it comes to this year's midterms 2028 and all future elections, the right, not those on Twitter, incorporate the motto from the sci-fi movie Galaxy Quest, never give up, never surrender. Well, those are two Trump quotes as well. I don't know what movie those would be from. I've never heard of it, but those are two Trump signatures, and they're right. So, all right, we're gonna wrap it up, guys. It's been an hour. It's been a great stream. Like the stream before you go. Leaderboard. We'll do the top 3. Number 3, John Waffle. Number 2, Red Whale 18. Number 1, American Nerd 76 with 2525 XP. So we'll wrap it up there, guys. Like the stream before you go. Subscribe, hit the bell. I'll see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.